We're weird in the morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Coffees to everyone. Coffees.
It's playing on my phone now in the background. I never remember to mute my phone because I don't want to have two windows open here, so I just have my phone beside me checking the chat, and I never mute it. Yeah. Everyone like our new theme song?
I think we're gonna go for like an a cappella kind of sound effecty thing. So
we're still figuring things out.
Yeah,
it's
we
a
still
process.
are. So I got terrible news. I got a call from the Hoff about a half an hour ago. Had to cancel, couldn't make it. Something came up. So
he's a busy guy. I understand.
Extremely busy.
But we are working on it. We're going to reschedule eventually.
Yeah, Matt, Tim, the Hoff. So
yeah, well, naturally.
I'd like to take a minute to point out this extremely bright photosynthetic sign. I'm actually going to turn it off. So for those unaware, the community came together and they got me this amazing sign that's sitting behind me. It's just really bright. There's a dimmer that goes
very, very bright. Yeah.
Not quite working.
There is a dimmer. It's just not functioning right now, right?
Yes, so. It's in an undimming function. So stay tuned for future episodes when we'll still have this sign behind me, but it won't be quite as bright. But a huge thanks to everybody who was part of getting that for me. I really appreciate it. And to you as well, Mr. Crab Shack. I know that you were a big part of that.
Pleasure. So pleasure. Yeah, I know the community was very affected when you stepped away. I think that much was clear, and everybody really wanted to put something together. I think Prowler and Cannabill are the main ones in the community that really drove this idea home and rallied the horses, so to speak. And we're happy to have you back, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing more stuff like this. I'm kind of switching up the format a little bit. I want to do a lot more just interviews and live content and stuff. Matt and Tim show, nipple play, yes. So more so on a Sunday though. It's not something you want to get into on like a Tuesday evening. It's it's a little too sensationalistic. So waking and bacon. Waking and bacon. I literally have my coffee and joint. Matt contacted me last night at like midnight, so in the morning, to do a morning live. Yeah,
and naturally I was down. So
well, morning, but I have to sleep. I'm like, no, you don't.
So maybe that's an idea for a segment. We do like a morning show, morning with Matt and Tim. Good morning. Mm-hmm.
Good mornings with Matt and Tim. That would be. You're slightly creepy when you do that.
Yeah, so. I know.
Just a little. So how's everybody doing this morning? Grow help. Of course, we are here taking questions if you are having problems with your grow.
Don't expect like the most intelligent answers of all time, but we can probably figure things out for you.
We're firing on at least 2 of 4 cylinders.
2 of 4. That's a good estimate. Yeah,
half, 50%, if you will.
But between the two of us running at 2 cylinders, we're a 4-cylinder engine running.
We're like a full car. Like a full car,
like a whole car,
like a Prius, like a small Prius, but not the electric version.
We're not the fastest going uphill, but once we have momentum, we're
all right. Well, I've got it on Top Shot. I got to put on
top of the morning. Rubik's, Darcy, Prowler, Sheet, Casey, Dungeon, Beaver. Nice to see everybody.
Genetics. That sounds kind of cool. We're down in the dungeon. I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons later today. That's good times.
D&D is always some good times. Yeah,
always some good times. So how's the grows going there, Timothy? How's
things are going good. I got a tent full of apple cup, terp mints that I just flipped to flower. So terp mints was the strain that we ran for the grow off.
Yes, the Good Neighbor grow off.
The Good Neighbor grow off, which Canada wiped the floor with the United States.
That was pretty close, but you guys did better. Yeah,
it was close. Yeah, it was a very close call. I think both teams did really, really well.
It was tight right in the end there. You know,
folks, if you're listening in and you're not part of the Discord, link in description. Join us. We have grow offs, we have competitions, we have giveaways, we have a weekly Friday interactive discussion where I occasionally wear clothes. There's a lot of things going on. Yeah. Raw 6-shooter, all tubes and wedding cake is ground. Nice, Darcy. That's a good way to start a Sunday. I had some wedding crasher recently that was fantastic.
I don't think I've ever tried any of the wedding strains, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah. So in my opinion, very, very gassy, kind of muted on the terpenes, similar to most cookie strains, but gassy and hits like a fucking freight train. Excuse the language. But yeah,
it's okay. Emotional.
Sorry, Susan. Sorry, Susan.
Well, I'm excited. Today is chop day for the papaya fire. It's coming down a little early. Actually, I haven't even looked at the trikes yet, but the buds are lush and dripping with resinous substance. I'm quite pleased. The terps, man. Oh, I'm getting some skunk. I'm getting some chem. I'm getting like a sweet bubble gum. Oh, it's nice and some good variants on the plant. So we're gonna pick the best of the 6 and kind of go from there.
Of course. So you're chopping. Does that mean you're about to fog?
I am about to fog. Yeah. We got the fogger sitting over there, and that's
catch the audience up with what's going on in case they missed your last update video.
Yeah, for sure. If you didn't see the last update, it's Thrip Horror here in the flower room.
Yes.
Despite my best efforts with my integrated pest management, they've just overtaken. I think part of the reason was I had that JMO that I just finished growing, and it was so big and so extensive. I pulled almost 14 ounces off just the single plant.
It was a record pull, no?
It was, biggest single plant grow that I've done to date. I was very, very pleased. Yeah, super nice, dense, garlicky armpit buds. But again, the problem was because the plant was so extensive, the thrips really kind of took hold. I did a bud wash, clean them off. Everything was fine in that regard. And the thing about thrips is they don't really get into the buds themselves. They're more interested in the families and a little bit of the sugar leaves, but that's what you trim them off for. And so chop that down. I've got some PKB remix in there. They're a couple weeks into flower. They're just starting to show some buds, so they're okay to get fogged. But what I'm going to do is I've got a pyrethrum fogger that I'm going to run in the space there and obliterate them all. I'm actually going to take even all the veg plants in there and stick them in space, even though I don't appear to have thrips in my veg space right now.
I might as well clean them out.
We are going nuclear option on everything. So I've done this once before. It'll kill everything in the room above the soil. So the stuff that's in the soil is still potential for, of course, causing issues. Now I've got lots of nematodes in the soil.
It will. I mean, we talked about this on Friday during our interactive discussion, dealing with pests, recognizing the symptoms, what to do. It's about prevention and mitigation, right? So at that point, after you've done your gassing, you've hit the nuclear option, there's still going to be some cockroaches laying about that survive the nukes, right?
Yep.
So you need to prevent, you need to mitigate. So, predator is, I'm assuming you're going to douse with a fresh spray of nematodes. You're probably going to lay down some of our famous Stratiolaelaps simitus.
Actually, this time I'm going to go with the what are they called again? It starts with an S. It's right at the tip of my tongue.
Crazy mites?
No, not the crazy mites. Oh God, you can tell it's Sunday morning and I'm getting high because my brain's not working here. So
another mite?
Yes, it's another mite. It's like right there on the tip of my tongue. It's like Californicus or something like that.
Well, Californicus is a plant one. I believe.
Yeah, it's a soil mite.
Okay, well, yes, you're going to introduce some mites and some nematodes.
Some mites and some nematodes.
Yeah, so that is going to act as your mitigator. Your prevention is going to stop leaf litter from accumulating in that live bed. and protecting and housing those
Swerskis. That's what I'm doing.
So I think of those as the crystal mice, Swarovski crystals.
Yes, they're quite beautiful. And
so we do have some questions coming up here. Sheets talking about thoughts on defoliating during flower. During what weeks is it a no to defol? It's a good question.
That's a really good question. I mean, it's plant dependent for one.
Yep, that's my response. Plant dependent. Yeah. How many fan leaves do you have to deal with? The key is to maintain good air circulation and light penetration to as much of the plants as you can. So whatever point you are in flower, it's technically never too late to defol. It's never too late. The point is not to over defol and cut yourself off at the heels, at the knees, right? Like you want to maintain photosynthetic capability for that plant in order for it to process its nutrients and develop those flowers for you.
I think one thing is after about week 3, week 4, they're going to stop pushing those big fan leaves. So if you strip too many of those off,
they're not coming back. They're not coming back into flower. That's the point. And Matt's absolutely right. So you have to keep that in mind. What you have in flower is what you're going to have. So do with that as you might. Day 12 of dry, close to stem snap. 10, it's trim day, jail again. Triple scope, good. So Darcy, if you're close to stem snap, in my opinion,
you're there.
Yeah. Once the stem snaps, you've gone over dry. In my opinion.
I find stem snap to be a really weird metric to go against because how thick is the stem? Which stem is it? Like if you've got a little tiny stem on a lower branch, it's going to snap a lot more easily than something right near that top cola.
So redneck, the redneck is no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's my brain. Go ahead.
I was going to say, personally, I like to go by squeeze of the buds when they start getting crispy on the outside, but they still have a little bit of sponge to them and stuff. And I'll check several places on the plant, usually the ones near the top, because I usually hang full plant or at least long branch. Ones near the top are usually a little bit more crispy than the ones at the bottom. So I kind of go for healthy in between, but I also look at fan leaves and, making sure my fan leaves are absolutely like crisp, crumbly to the touch.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I would recommend is go by touch. And I don't mean that by the texture or crushing a bud, but hold the stem and you'll see. So if you're at the right temperature ranges for drying, so under 69 degrees, the stem, as it's wet, feels cold. Hang your plant in there. The next day, put your hand in there and feel the stem. It's going to feel cold and wet kind of. As soon as that cold temperature leaves the stem, so when you go in there and put your hand and grab the stem and it doesn't feel cold anymore, it's dry. I promise you. That's actually how I do it, is I do it by feeling the stem. And if the stem no longer feels colder than the air, then my weed is almost always dry.
That's really good.
Again, it's flower dependent because some are going to be denser. They'll take a little bit more, in which case you need to do what Matt told you, which is kind of crunch the nugs and you do a good judge. But worst comes to worst, I would always opt for pulling too early than too late. Reason being is if you're a couple of degrees over, you can throw it in the jar with a hygrometer and figure out real quick, okay, the hygrometer is reading 66%. It needs to go out for a bit. Take your trim tray, whatever, put them out on the tray for a couple of hours, put them back in the jar, and it'll even out. You can do it that way with very, very little risk of pathogen inducement. But yeah, feel the stem.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that you can add moisture back into an overdried bud, you're going to lose something.
The terp loss is never recoverable. The terp loss is not recoverable. So, like I was saying, Redneck Hippie talking about defol day 21 and 42 of flower, which is very, very specific, but I see what you're doing. You're doing before and after the flip, right? Which makes sense. The stretch, before and after the stretch.
I usually like to go about 7 to 14. I'll go through and I'll do a pretty heavy defol, take everything but about the top 2-3 leaves. And then once I hit about day 28, I'll go through and just bud sites, just anything that's covering a bud site.
Yeah, you guys are being so specific. Day 28. Okay, so I will pre-stretch do a default. So once it shows its sex, okay, I've flipped the switch. It's been 11 days and it's now starting to show sex. I'm going to clean it up and do a default. Then I'm going to let it stretch out and I'll do another default, because after the stretch, you're going to see the true form of what the plant is at, what it's going to be in full flower, right? And that's when I make the judgment call of, okay, this needs to go, that needs to go in order to maximize what I'm working with.
I want to hit on something that you just said there about specific to date. Yeah, you're right. We tend to do that a lot, especially with genetics and stuff. Oh, this thing's it's a 8-week flower, 8-week flower time. No, it isn't. Yep. It's however long it takes to become ripeness in the grower's eyes in their environment. That could be 10 weeks. It could be 7.5 weeks. Right.
I hate genetics companies that do that, like 72 days. Go fuck yourself. You have no idea what it's going to fucking flower, what rate it's going to flower in the conditions that I've provided. You have no idea how I like my herb and at what, couch lock effect range I want. You have no idea where I want those terpenes to be, there's so many different variables that come into play for flowering time that when I see any less than a 2-week spread in flower recommendation time, you're lying. You're lying to your customers. Honestly, that's why, like with my seeds, I give everybody a 2-week spread. Like that's a 10 to 12-week flower based on what you want it to end up like. That's how I grow it, and any more than a 2 weeks, any less than a 2-week spread, and you're pulling numbers out of thin air.
Yeah. It's like anything in regards to the grow. It's going to be very specific on a number of circumstances. I mean, you could have first week, you could have an overwater situation in flower, could stunt things. I've had that happen, killed some plants, but we're not going to dwell on that. So going into the chat here, mustard seed meal.
Is the bomb? Oh, yeah. Okay, sweet. Good to know.
I've not used it before. So one of the other things, go ahead.
Mustard greens has cover crop before, and easy peasy lemon squeezy. That makes perfect sense as far as a seed, sprouted tea ingredient, something like that.
Yeah, that could definitely work. Get in there with the breast action.
Well, and if pests hate it, that's all the better, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the other things to touch on here that I'm going to be doing with my beds too is we're bringing on the sulfur for a couple of reasons too. I started looking at a new company here out of Kelowna called Optimize Organics. I'm going to throw a quick plug because they do flat rate shipping. It's incredible, man. So
we got all sorts of people joining here. We got 4 plants growing at the beach. Rob SWA, check the feeling the coolness and moisture. Good man, that's the technique. Mad Hemp just joined us. Thanks for joining us there, community director. Good morning.
Sleeping in.
Mountain time.
Yeah, let's go.
Can we recommend a breeder that's doing large auto flowers? Okay, that's a good question.
Wildwood.
Yeah, I'll recommend a great auto flower breeder, Wildwood Seeds. How big an auto flower gets has as much to do with the genetics as what you're doing and how you're growing the plant. Generally, an auto flower, once the roots hit the walls, and I'm not an expert by any means, but in my experience, once the roots hit the walls, it starts to kick into flower. So you need to take that into account. I see a lot of people now transplanting autos and stuff, which can totally work, but you're gambling as well, because genetic dependent, you can kick into flower in a solo cup in that, right? Yeah. So recommending, Rob, look up Wildwood Seeds.
Up here in Canada, where it's completely legal, Susan. Totally legal, totally on the up and up. Stuff we're allowed to do here in Canada.
Yeah. Think of it like American beer, but
GT, what's up?
Really good.
Yeah.
Think of it like Canadian beer.
but even better. So, yeah, see, welcome to the Grow Tent. Just join us in the chat there. It's good to see you, brother. Been a while.
Howdy do.
So, give a little woo. So. No, it's Wildwood's very good. I want to bring it back on talking there sulfur. So I just brought in a bunch of different types of sulfur. I've got some like granular gypsum, some manganese sulfate, some langbonite, which also has sulfur and potash and all that other good stuff, and magnesium, and one other form that I can't remember. Oh yeah, an actual sulfur, granulized sulfur. So I'm going to be hitting the beds with like not hard with all these different types, but I'm going to be easing some sulfur into my lineup here because a couple different reasons. I mean, one, the bugs don't like sulfur to begin with, and two, our good friend Proper, he's been doing a lot of work with sulfur and finding that by increasing the sulfur, hey Ms. K, you are also increasing your terpenes quite a bit. So I definitely want to play more with that. I'm all about the flavor at the end of the day, right? I think that's something we definitely agree on.
Yeah, so let's talk about sulfur a little bit.
Let's talk about sulfur.
So sulfur in a natural bed is generated by the breakdown of organic material. So if you're running organic, you are in a high sulfur environment anyhow, based on the level of organic material breaking down in your soil. There are microbes that specifically eat and shit sulfur. So they're eating the nitrogen breakdown material and shitting sulfur. So sulfur is excellent because it is one of the keys to very robust terpene. And that's why you see and hear so often, organic provides a stronger terpene result with the same flower. The reason being is because it's such a high sulfur environment. If you're growing with synthetics and you're not boosting sulfur, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Well, it's like we always talk about NPK, but it should be NPK CAS. Because we should have our calcium and our sulfur because they're so freaking important to everything. Well, magnesium too. But
arguably silicon. Or silica.
Silica, yeah. You should be putting silica in every time you water if you can, right? You get those nice strong cellular structures. Yeah. Ziggy J has an excellent question here.
There's so many micros that are like really crucial that you just they're going to be there in general in enough concentrations that people don't really worry about them, which is why you hear NPK. But really, the whole spectrum is kind of dependent on it itself, right? And it's an ecosystem that is balanced by itself. So a lot of those nutrients are going to regulate the uptake of other nutrients and vice versa.
Yeah, with calcium acting as the transport. Ziggy J is asking, what is the minimum wattage you use for LED lights in a 4x4 tent? So
that's a loaded question.
That's a very loaded question. Wattage is not really a relevant measurement anymore. Back when we were doing things like HPS and whatnot, you'd be quoted in wattage because there's only so many options, right? Now what we want to look at is footprint of the light, the PAR map. Every light almost every light that's for sale on a place like Amazon or whatnot, they display some sort of a footprint, and you need to look at that footprint and base it on what your grow goals are. So if you're in a 4x4 space and you want to flower, you want to make sure that light is going to have enough even PAR coverage. So at the edges, you're getting about the 600 to 700 at least, right? With a lot more evenness throughout.
Yeah, you want to be no less than 550 for a reasonable flower. Above 600 is where your plant's going to shine. But really, what you're aiming for, the sweet spot, is 800 across the map, in my opinion. As far as paint, if you're going to paint everything with the same brush, talking PPFD, that is not wattage.
Yeah.
So
That's a good way to look at it.
and the reason you're asking about wattage, Siggy, is exactly what Matt said. Is it was an antiquated, it's a now antiquated calculation when you're looking at wattage per square foot as coverage. That used to be the way that you would calculate it, really. It's not that way anymore. The efficiencies have changed, and so that wattage per square foot is very skewed from fixture to fixture based on the efficiency of the fixture. And there's some lights, like Matt said, that are going to provide a much more even footprint across that 4x4 than an equivalent light in wattage, just based on the form factor of the light. So what light do you need for a 4x4? You need to look at light fixtures that are designed for a 4x4 or 5x5 flower rating. Otherwise, you can piece it out, so you can do modular lighting, but keep in mind that space. So 4x4 is going to need 4 2x2 rated lights, or 2 2x4 rated lights, or 1 4x4 rated light, or if you want to bang it out, a 5x5 rated light. And so the question's big. There's a lot of different models that I could recommend, or Matt could recommend for sure, that would fill that out. Why don't you join the Discord and we can talk about it a little bit there?
Yeah, link down below. And I just want to continue talking on something you're talking there with the modular system, especially like if you're getting started growing and you're thinking, okay, I want to do a 4x4 tent. Awesome. That's a great way to start. You don't need 4x4 worth of light right off the bat. You can go and buy a 2x2 light, then buy a second one, right? And as your plants get bigger, you can space them out. Maybe you buy a 2x4 light.
The cool thing about modular as well is you can cater to different heights of plants, right? So some phenotypes within the exact same strain that you've planted 4 seeds all from one pack, you're going to notice some of those phenos that come out are going to be much different shapes. Like it really does range. So you can cater to each of those plants, or different sectors, based on having 4 lights. It's kind of cool to work that way. It's actually one of the downsides of getting one of those big bar style lights, is you're kind of limited as to how you can cater a multiple plant grow. So yeah, great, excellent point, Matt.
Well, one of the things when Dr. MJ was on the show, him and I talked about was lighting the room versus lighting the bench, right? And that's a really good explanation. So like in a 4x4 space, get a Mars Hydro FC6500, put it right at the top and crank that thing right up, right? Like you've then got the entire space awash with light.
And let the plants grow into it, right? So, and that's what I do is I have a light that I run full tilt, but at the very top of the tent, and the plants are bathed in a very even footprint from corner to corner due to that, and they grow into the part that they need, essentially.
Good way to look at it.
So Kitty's Garden, would I use a product like Turpify in your organic grow? If you're growing organic, you don't need to. That's the beauty of what I was saying before about the sulfur result that you're getting from an organic living soil. Is very, very high, which is why an organic product really does. So Turpify, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm not that familiar with that particular product, but a lot of them are high starch, high sugar boosters. There might be some that involve sulfur, but it's not something that you need beyond what you're already having success with in your organic grow. Now, if you're seeing deficiencies, if you're struggling with your organic grow, then there's another solution at play, as opposed to adding a synthetic product to the mix.
Yeah. Hey, let's touch on synthetics in an organic system for a minute.
Yep.
It's not a bad thing. Like if you got some bottles kicking around and you've got a deficiency.
When you met me, how was I growing?
You were the hybrid style.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I build a soil that is strong enough, an organic soil that is strong enough to carry my plant through veg, and then I boost PK in flower. And I was doing that with salts before. Now I'm doing it with organic teas. That's the only difference that I changed. Otherwise, I'm still building my organic soil the same way. And in flower, I'm boosting PK. It's just in an organic tea form.
Absolutely. Good way to do it, man. Like I think everybody has their own different grow styles. Like I'm super lazy, so I just get the bed set up and I, come and chop plants down 2-3 months later.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have 200-300 gallons of soil sitting there, that's a big old battery that you don't have to recharge very often, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I generally just recharge it when I flip it.
Hey guys, it's Tanya from Tacos and Tokes with Tim and Tanya.
Oh, my hair looks lovely.
you guys have a new episode coming soon too, don't you?
Yeah, we normally sleep in on Sundays, but yeah, as mentioned, Matt dragged me out of bed for this one. So yeah. But new episode coming next week, folks. So
right.
Link down below if you're not subscribed to Tacos and Tokes with Tim and Tanya, the awesome food and cannabis review show.
Yeah, Tanya cooks us an awesome dinner. We roll up a joint, we tell you about the weed, we tell you about the food, and we tell you how to make it. So
there you go.
Please join us. Yeah.
And we tell you how to grow the weed. So
yeah, we cover that stuff here. Yeah.
So I see Candy in the chat there. Manic Mouth. How y'all doing? Been a while, guys. This is good, man. A little Sunday morning action. Lots of folks are showing up to say hi.
Hi, Medic. Yeah. Got all sorts of people here. Genetic memory. I can tell from having mustard many times that mustard seed meal goes through a run of enzymatic reactions when hydrated. This reaction creates glucosinolates, which then becomes mustard oil. Interesting. Okay, so there's is there some risk at using that, Genetic Memory Farms, due to the mustard oil? Or is that a beneficial thing to combat soil pests?
I know that Jeremy's been pushing the mustard seed meal on the Build-A-Soil there lately.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, I've not worked with it myself, so I can't really speak to it personally.
Good morning, Rico.
There we go.
Rico Suave. Rico Suave. You remember that song?
I do. I do. You're not doing it the justice it deserves.
Oh, come on, man. I did. That was fantastic.
It wasn't bad.
So critical.
Little bit.
Yeah. Where were we talking about?
We're kind of all over the map here.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Growing at the beach, saying currently using a small food processor in order to break down the space rock that my Build-A-Soil silica turned into. Some of those grow amendments really absorb water. I had some coconut water powder for a while there, and I left the bag just slightly unsealed in about 3 days, like just a rock.
Okay, so growing at the beach, I'm not familiar with the BAS silica. Is it basically just diatomaceous earth or what?
So I've got a silica product that's ground rice hulls.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the company is no longer around. Looks like they went down during COVID, unfortunately. But it's one of those organic products. You buy a pound of it and you use like a quarter teaspoon per 5 gallons. So I have it for years. Like literally, I've had the bag for like 3 years and I still have half of it left.
Yeah, so I've been using a variation of different rock dusts and green sand, diatomaceous earth to supplement silica. It's been working quite well for me, I would say. Beauty of it is if you're using various sources, there's going to be differing breakdown rates. So it works quite well as a balance if you're using multiple source for silica in a soil, in a organic soil environment. Sheet, go fuck yourself. If you skip vinegar, you get spicy mustard. You get a spicy mustache.
Well, that's interesting, eh?
Mine, Matt, going to put a silica pack in to keep it dry next time.
Yeah, good stuff though. The plants really like it. So I like using coconut when I can. It's a big seed full of goodness. So.
I need another coffee. I'm down to like the last 3 or 4 sips, and I'm pacing myself. Good, excellent,
nice,
excellent. Rice hulls at Windhaus, still I believe Windhaus. That's the
there's a couple places here in town. If you're not aware of the goodness of rice cells, of course, they act as an aeration, long-term breakdown, silica and whatnot, and they're terribly inexpensive. You just call up like a brewery supply store, and they can usually get you like 50 pounds for $50. So,
but you do have to keep in mind it does break down eventually. So yeah. If you're using it for aeration as a sole aeration in a no-till environment, you can't depend on it. Your soil will end up compacting eventually.
Yeah, which is where I'm at. Well, I shouldn't say my soil's compacting. My rice hulls that I originally mixed in as aeration in my beds has now started to really break down. But I also did hydrogen clay pebbles in there, so I still have plenty of aeration in the space. Plus worms and worms and worms and worms. So.
Worms. And that's a great point about worms as far as combating soil compaction. If you're having that issue in a no-till bed or in a bed outside in your garden, add worms, man. It's amazing what it can do as far as aerating that soil.
Yeah. Well, if you're dealing with compacted soil outside, the best thing you can do is throw a crop in there like daikon radishes, something that's big and is going to drill down into the soil. Then you harvest it and just dump gypsum like crazy into the holes. That'll help break that soil down, get that clay broken up and whatnot. Rice hulls makes great medium for Bokashi. Says
hell yeah,
best Bokashi. It does.
Best Bokashi. Quick shout out to my man UT who makes the best Bokashi in the world.
He does. It's amazing.
Yes, he does.
Let's talk Bokashi and the ANGO here for a few.
Yeah, why not?
How's the plants going, Tim?
They're seeing stuff, but they're doing good, man. You want to see them?
Yeah, let's do plants. Mine's outside, so and it's still in the dark, but it looks good. So if you're unaware, we're doing the all natural grow off. Of course, this is using inputs that we've made ourselves, nothing coming from the grow store other than cocoa or peat. Which one is this now? Is this the leaf mold or is this the Chef Boyardee?
This is the leaf mold bucket. So This is fed exclusively on collected leaf mold, nothing else.
Yeah. So you went out into the woods and collected some leaf mold and cooked that stuff off, and look at how good that plant's looking. That's it. Leaf mold collected from the forest.
Yeah, doing just fine. Again, there's a couple of issues. It's got a little bit of red stemming going on, which I'm going to fix with some homemade WCA. But yeah, it's doing good. Let's see.
Water soluble calcium acetate made using vinegar and eggshells. Very, very easy. Yeah. Earlier, we were talking about salts and using salts to rescue plants if you're having an issue. There's also a number of different organic amendments that you can make, like WCA and WCP, to do quick rescue. Why don't you tell us about this atrocity?
I don't want.
Does it still smell?
Not so bad. No,
that's not so bad.
Just when I water it, it gets a little stench. So this is nothing but cocoa perlite and beefaroni.
Yeah, using the power of Bokashi.
Yeah, I do supplement with Gatorade. So it's getting.
You make it sound like that's an advantage.
It's getting a nice wide spectrum. So I actually found out. So the Gatorade Zero, so their diet one, it's got monopotassium phosphate. It's got asulfame potassium. It's actually got a really wide spectrum of potassium and phosphates. So good. And it's got calcium as well, magnesium. So you just can't overdo it. This is my last bottle. I need to get more.
Are you thirsty? So I mean, the challenge here was just to take and make your own inputs. Of course, Tim went a little nuts by doing the Chef Boyardee, but I think it's showing really that Bokashi will take and break stuff down to the point
but
where
it's hurting a little bit. It's it's got a few deficiencies starting to show, which is no surprise. No surprise. But
Idiocracy tech. Nice, Marshall. I love it.
That's exactly what it is. It's Brondo. It's got what plants need, and it's got what they crave.
Got what a plant craves. Brondo. On the other hand, I mean, I can't show my plants right now, but I went and I just built a nitrogen bucket and a PK bucket, and that's all I've done. I went super simple. I'm having really good results. I'll drop an update here in the next couple of days. I got a couple things to share out that way, but it's really taught me that you don't need to do much. What you got there, Tim? Oh, bright light, really bright light. Terp mints.
Shout out to Wildwood
Terp mints. So I'm a chef and a baker though. So yeah, genetic, nice, man.
That's awesome, dude. Awesome.
But yeah, no, I mean, when the zombie apocalypse finally does come, we'll be able to make Bokashi and whatnot, and it'll be good.
Fantastic. Canned food Bokashi is a thing. It works, and I think I've all but proven it so far. It can grow a plant. Bokashi turns anything into food. You have to do it for a real long time. I would have liked to have done maybe a 12-month beefaroni Bokashi to really break it down, because I can tell you, and we have it on video on the Discord, when I mixed that, it was the foulest smelling thing I've ever smelled in my fucking life, without question.
That's the thing, yeah. Like, Bokashi's amazing, but you have to be prepared to deal with the smell of the anaerobic output. It was outside cooking for a month and a half after I mixed it, before I brought it into the house, because it smelled that bad. Yeah, mine was similar, cooking for about a month.
Hell yeah, UT. Hell yeah.
What should I do with my leftover whey when I make butter? If you got whey, that's a good question. I mean, I know you can make the curds and do cheese or whatever with it, but I'm not really sure, to be honest.
You can use whey to collect microorganisms for sure.
Can you? No, like, that's when you're doing labs, like, you get that separation.
Yeah,
as part of the collection. I don't know if you can just use straight whey to do a collection. Maybe I just don't know, really.
I don't see why not. Probably, but there's residual proteins enough in there to start a new collection, add more milk.
Interesting.
I'm thinking. Let's speak to a cheese expert.
Yes. If anybody else in the session knows the answer, I implore you to type it into the chat. Mix it with milk. There you go.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah. Because there's do a new. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's gonna have residual starters in there for you anyway. As soon as you give it some more food, it should bloom up. Protein milk.
Jeff, you don't know about
Brotil? Are you part of Team Brotil, Steve? Brotil.
So Jeff, you're asking about the milk. So what we're doing with milk is you use rice and water to basically start up a collection of microorganisms, and then you feed them milk to get them to bloom, and then you separate the milk into two parts, effectively the curds and the whey, and the whey is what contains these microorganisms. It's extremely beneficial for your plant environment. So it's a natural farming technique, man. If you're not aware, Discord links down below. Come, we'll be happy to teach you more about it, sir.
Absolutely. We have a resident expert. His name is UT.
Yeah, it's
Korean natural farming techniques.
Yep.
But really, it's natural farming techniques at this point because we're doing it.
Lactobacillus. Yeah, I like the term modern natural farming.
Yes. Progressive natural farming.
Progressively modern natural farming. No? PMNF. Probiotics for plants. Yeah.
Exactly.
Craves.
Exactly that. Well, probiotics for soil, resulting in happy plants. Baby, take the full piece.
Baby.
Look at a product called Thrive Wave Probiotics. Okay, interesting. Very interesting.
See, my chat's slower than yours. I haven't gotten that yet.
Did you switch to live chat as opposed to top chat?
I am in live chat. Oh, wait, no, top chat.
There you go. I don't know why they did that. They made a change a little while back, and it's confusing sometimes if you don't make that switch.
Dummies.
Oh, I tell you. Is purpling leaves phosphorus deficiency? Ooh, that's a good question.
Depends.
So purple can happen for a number of different reasons. It can be environment. It's cooler in the environment. The plant goes purple to help absorb more light to keep itself warm. It can be too much light. The plant's going purple to help to protect itself, its nutrient pathways. It can be genetics. Plants just go purple. The terpments that I run, that I've now called Grapple because it's very, very unique strain. But week 2, the plant just goes purple, like hard purple.
Mm-hmm. It depends on what rate, what stage of the plant you're seeing it in. If you're seeing purple as a seedling, there's a big fucking issue. If you're seeing purpling late flower, totally normal.
Totally.
You could have a molybdenum deficiency, which is like a rare imbalance in the soil. You could there's a litany of different reasons for it. We could narrow it down based on the age of the plant a little bit, more than likely. But it would take some back and forth, figure out what you're feeding, what's going on. We'd need to do a little diagnosis run with you. Why don't you join the Discord?
Yep. Oh, hi, Jerry.
We have a full help center there with
link down below.
Yeah, a dozen or so experts that are there to help all the time, including me and Matt. So
week 4 of flower. It's I'm gonna guess it's genetics. Casey's asking about using aspirin for plants as a foliar spray. So what that does is it causes the plant to think it's being it's being attacked, and it gives off a defense mechanism that makes it stronger. So I know people do it for tomatoes and stuff. I've never really done it for anything. I don't know if you've done it. Oh, hi, Cheddar. Cheddar has entered the chat. So,
I have treated blossom end rot from tomatoes with aspirin.
Yes.
Effectively.
Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host.
Week 4 of flower in cocoa autopots. It might be genetic.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess.
Join the Discord, man, and we'll take a look at it. Share a photo, and we'll take a look. I'll try and figure it out for you. But yeah, some plants just grow purple. She's right. Yeah. Anchovies, fantastic. You can make a fish amino acid dose.
Yeah,
those anchovies will work perfect. Even amounts of those anchovies and brown sugar. Or is it 2 to 1?
Would anchovies be too salty? I mean, I know they're a salty fish. But...
It depends if it's salted or not. It's not necessarily a salty fish. If it's preserved, it's a salty fish. If it's a whole anchovy, it's just a fish from the ocean. You know, if you break the spine of an ocean fish, you can drink fresh water out of its spine.
That was random.
It's an SAS survival technique when you're shipwrecked.
There you go. Aloe vera has natural salicylic acid like the aspirin, only aloe has a lot of other benefits. Yes, it does, growings. Aloe is amazing. I get an aloe plant right there. You can see it, but
I have more aloe plants than any man rightfully should.
This is true. You have. I've only got like 5. You've got like 800.
I've got a few.
We've got the aloe jungle.
I need to repot the giant actually because she's sitting in a 2-gallon pot and is just like she's as big as Tanya.
Yeah. Curlings. I've made FAA with saltwater fish. Oh yeah, absolutely. I made an FAA with tuna and salmon actually. No, I was just wondering because I know anchovies can be quite salty. So
if they're preserved,
yeah.
If they're preserved, yes. If they're just fresh anchovies, no.
Yeah, it'd be a regular fish. Yeah. Yeah, FAA is amazing stuff. It's weird though to make.
Hey, big ones.
So we got about 10 minutes left in the stream here, simply because my lights come on in 10 minutes and I got to go harvest. So we'll start winding it down. Any other questions, folks? Are you not in the Discord? Have you? We just hit 500 members there yesterday, man. We did, yeah.
We were above that at one point then, and I think we did a bit
No, we've never hit 500. We were about high 400s at one point, but
that's okay. The ones that we keep are the good ones.
Yes.
Just know that you have to behave yourself and, like be a respectable human. And that's it.
Be a human. Be a person. Don't be a scoundrel.
Don't be a douche nozzle.
I mean, that's a nice way to say it. Worm cheese.
We're a very inclusive community there. So anyone is welcome.
We're good times. We are. Actually, it's good times over there because it's very low drama. We got a couple of rules that we abide by, and everybody really seems to get along. And sometimes we do nice things for each other. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool indeed.
Yes.
So when we have the words worm and cheese side by side, it makes me slightly uneasy because now are the worms making the cheese? The worms eating the cheese?
Cheese.
Worm cheese. Are the worms becoming the cheese? There's a horrifying thought.
Well, they have that cheese that has like live maggots in it.
This is something I didn't need to know about.
Yeah, it's like a particularly creamy cheese, and that creaminess is because the maggots eat it, and you're eating that maggot shit, and that's the creamy stuff. That's the good stuff.
That's absolutely disgusting. Crowling's asking, you guys ever reuse your soil? All the time. I just buy more of it too.
Always.
I've
never not reused my soil. Even in a synthetic environment, I would rinse out my cocoa and reuse.
Yeah. Like right now, I've got a Rubbermaid bin full of soil sitting in the garage that's suspected of having thrips in it because it's soil that I pulled out of the flower room and other places. So that stuff's just sitting. It's going to get turned into outdoor soil, right? But it's still good soil because, once the thrips are out of it. But yeah,
you could also just to touch on that, if you were dealing with a pest issue and you're thinking I have to toss all my soil out, you can actually bake it.
You sure can.
So the one surefire way of killing all microorganisms in there is to put it in the fucking oven and bake it off. And you can do that in rounds and save that soil and re-inoculate it. And But yeah, I do small pot organics. I don't do no-till. So I always reuse my soil. It's part of how I keep a living soil is I have a giant reservoir filled with soil that I continuously add to when needed.
Yeah, I got one sitting over there.
I have another one in behind there too.
Jeff's asking how many worms is too many worms in your soil? It's not a problem you have to worry about. Worms self-regulate.
Yeah, they regulate their own population. So once it hits too many, they stop. They reach a food limitation, right? So they'll depopulate themselves.
Casey, that's an excellent idea. Fresh seaweed in ocean water? Oh yeah. There's some Jadam techniques that call for seawater. It's very high in minerals.
Yeah, as is your seaweed is going to be absolutely massive in micronutrients. And salt is a little bit of salt is not a bad thing in the soil whatsoever.
No, high in micronutrients. Speaking of high, I've just been sitting here constantly puffing.
Oh, I know. I noticed that. I'm like, dude, he's going to be ripped. I've smoked two joints. You've been hitting a fucking 90% concentrate,
It's that Kish pen that We're getting on its way, dear, my friend. So good times.
Same as in work. Exactly. It regulates itself as far as population.
Yeah, natural PGRs too. That's a good point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kelp is special.
Plant growth regulators aren't a bad thing necessarily if you're using them correctly, and by that I mean not too much, and only the natural ones like you get in seaweed or willowbark.
You can overdo it and cause a plant to do some funky things for sure.
Sure can. Hey, shout out to the folks over at Microbial Master who have that product Chitosal, which is salicylic acid and chitin. So you're getting some PGRs in there, but they've got a very limited recommendation. You only use it about 5 times during the entire grow.
I've never used it.
Good product. It's just a little on the pricey side. So yeah, there's other ways to do natural PGRs like that too. Like I use crab meal for the chitin, and you can do a willow bark, like a boil down if you can get the willow bark to get the PGRs out of it. I've never tried it. That's what I've heard.
You want to say hi to everybody? Fat cat. That's my big cat. She's like giant. I don't know if you can tell the size, but she's like a huge fucking. She's a tuxedo, but a Maine Coon. So it's weird. Anyway, hey, Fatso. Yeah. Yeah.
With special guests, our cats.
Yeah.
There we go. Showing up the Hoff. I still can't believe he bailed on us.
I think his excuse was legitimate. We can't tell you guys the excuse because it's of a personal nature, but we'll get him on.
Won't worms create too much castings after a few runs in a small pot? Well, that's the thing. Like if you're doing small port organics, you're going to take that and dump your soil, re-amend, do all the things. So I don't think that's a problem. You can't really have too much worm castings. Like you can grow with nothing but worm castings and some aeration. But bark is a mulch. Yeah.
So like pine bark?
Use shavings as a mulch. I like them because they break down really easy.
I like it. Yeah. All right, folks. Well, I guess
we'll start winding her down here. I got to go chop some plants.
Yeah, since Matt's got some harvesting to do, we'll let you go. Appreciate everybody joining us. It was a nice, cool morning to kind of wake and bake with you guys.
Yeah, I'm severely high right now. Yeah. So, Tim.
Yes,
guys,
sir.
Make sure you check out Tacos and Tokes. Link down below. If you're not on the Discord, again, check that out. And stop on by again. Oh, also Mars Hydro TS 1000 right there.
Oh, also Living Soil Society.
Living Soil Society. Yes, coming back with a vengeance. Yeah. Vengeance. LSS, the return. And I think we're done. So